If you haven't received any responses to jobs that you've applied to, can't sleep at night thinking that maybe you're gonna get a rejection email tomorrow, and frustrated by all the work that you've put in with absolutely no return, then I feel you. I've been on this emotional roller coaster. Like, honestly, I'm gonna put in proof right here. So I'm about to get on an interview with a hiring manager. I don't know if I'm gonna find out anything today. Yes, I needed this. I'm scared. No, I just see, tears included.
Emotional damage.
Ups and downs of interviews are no joke. It's such a weird feeling where you're like, I'm hopeful, but I'm pessimistic at the same exact time. You're also like, why do I care about this so much? Why is it consuming my life? Like, I wish I didn't care that much. I am with you on this. I am here to tell you that right now is a perfect time to boost your motivation. And stick around to the end because I'm gonna reveal to you the hack that got me my UX design job in 2 months out of my UX bootcamp, which is wild. So I'm just here to prove to you that it is possible. So I'm going to provide you the whole winter arc, and these are all the steps, and this is exactly what worked for me. Before I go through these steps, I'm just going to assume that you already have your portfolio built and that you already learned UX design through some sort of program, whether that's a boot camp or online courses or a master's program, what have you. But if you haven't done that step yet, please do that before you continue here. And if you need help on choosing which way to learn UX, spoiler alert, it really does matter on how you learn. Watch this video. Okay, we have 90 days, so let's get into it. Here's phase 1, level up your experience. So we want to gain more hands-on experience, and this is going to be done in 2 parts. Part 1 is going to be freelance or volunteer work. And you're probably thinking, Mimi, I don't have time for this. I really should be applying to jobs, and I already have the skills, and I already learned everything. So like, why do we need to do this again? Trust me, if you're new to UX design, you're going to want to do this because the market right now, she's not very nice. I'm going to tell you why it's so hard to get a job today, and that's because there's just a massive tsunami.
Rain on me. Tsunami
of new designers trying to break into the field with absolutely no real design work. It's mostly theoretical. A lot of them are case studies from their UX bootcamp, and that's fine. It's something I did, but you gotta find a new way to stand out. So I'm gonna tell you exactly what to do. You're gonna go to catchafire.com. You're gonna look for projects that need any UX design support. That could even be visual design if that's something that you're good at, if UI is your thing, or even UX research. This website will match you up with a nonprofit that needs that type of help. And one caveat is that this isn't paid work, but I think there's a lot of beauty in that because if you end up actually getting a design project from Catchafire, honestly, it might as well be money because it is going to help you get that job. Now, so you can't find anything on Catchfire, you can't find any volunteer work. Now look towards family and friends. I asked a family friend who owned a boutique hotel at that time if I could help them redesign their contact page. And even though that's a very small scoped project, it was better than nothing. And so then I was able to speak to it on my portfolio that I did a UX audit. The last resource here is free and it's scrappy. I used a ton of different challenges and websites when I had some spare time while I was interviewing for jobs, and I'll link all of those in the descriptions below, but please do this when you have free time because you always want to be sharpening your design skills, because the worst thing that could happen is that it's time. Like, you're getting your boxing gloves on and you're getting in the ring because you just got an interview and they're like, we want you to do an app critique. We want you to do a live design challenge. And you're like, oh my God, I literally left my brain in some vat of acid and I completely forgot how. Moving on to part 2, which is pretty straightforward. You're just gonna take any projects that you're gonna be doing, whether that's that free version online or family friend or volunteer work, and you're gonna see it through. Maybe take around the first month to get those projects out to a place where you're like, this is something that I could see myself putting on a portfolio or that I can talk to when I get interviews. Moving on to phase 2, which is the job search. This is the funnest part, my friends. In this phase, we're gonna talk about how to apply to entry-level positions, and then the second one is a strategy for if there are no jobs to apply to. I know, you're like, what is this wizardry? What is this magic that she's about to pull? So stick around. You're gonna send around 5 to 10 applications a week. You're gonna pull up a Google Excel sheet, and you're going to put in every single role that you've applied to, when, where, even source from LinkedIn. By doing this, it's going to keep you accountable. And honestly, looking back on it, it makes you feel a little bit better that you're like, I actually did a lot of work in that time. When you do start getting a lot of interviews, it helps to see which ones are in what process. For example, I had a ton of different roles listed out, and I started tracking which one's in the phone interview stage, which one's in the design exercise stage, and it kind of helps you stay organized as well. So doing this ahead of time will really help. Secondly, I say this in a lot of my videos, but please focus on entry-level jobs, okay? So when I first started applying, I was applying to senior level positions because I felt like that was the only thing out there. But the more and more I applied to them, I was like, who am I kidding? Who am I fooling? This is not gonna work. And honestly, being on the other side, I get some entry-level or junior designers applying to senior level positions, and I'm like, are you trying to fool me? Because I see right past you. So you don't want to give off that little tricky, slippery snake vibe, okay? We don't want to go there. So humble yourself. And honestly, being humble is like a huge, huge characteristic that I look for in a new designer as well, because that means they won't come in with a big ego. This is where it gets kind of juicy, because you're probably like, okay, Mimi, open your eyes. There are no entry-level positions. What am I supposed to do? Have you seen what it's like out there? It's a mess. It's a mess. Now let's start here first. It's kind of a mental mindset thing, and honestly, take a second to really hear me out. When I'm in a desperate place, I start to do desperate things. And when I start to do desperate things, I become pretty audacious. Because I was feeling so spicy and pissed and annoyed and desperate and upset, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna create these UX design positions for myself. I know, you're like, who does this girl think she is? Who is this diva?
Wait a minute. Who are you?
And this is how I did it. And honestly, the fact that no one talks about this blows my mind. Go on the internet and start typing in like your local area and look for agencies and startups. Start making a list of every agency and startup that you find that you think has some sort of connection with design, whether that's a branding agency, digital marketing agency, any type of startup that has a very small amount of employees, okay? Go to their direct website and try and get a feel of what kind of services that they offer, and make sure that they have some type of digital services, whether that's like websites or apps. Then you're gonna go on their LinkedIn and do some good old lurking. This is where it gets kind of fun. You have to look for visual designers, and you have to see if they don't have UX designers. It's actually way more fun if they don't have UX design at all, because this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna message them and you're gonna go, hey, notice that you have visual design for websites or apps or whatnot. Have you ever considered getting a UX designer? I'm open to working for free. The trick is to target very small companies, and that's why I say agencies or startups, because you're looking around like 7 to 10 employees, because they have that flexibility. They're essentially like mom and pop shops that are like, yeah, I mean, you want to help me out for free, then easy, like go for it. Versus like a bigger corporation. This is the best way to get the conversation going. And honestly, one of these agencies ended up being the one that hired me. Granted, a lot of them didn't work out, but they were so nice and responsive that they connected me with some other designers, and honestly, some of these designers have helped me get a new role later down in my career. So this has honestly paid off so well. And I get it. Like, if you need the money and you need it fast, this is probably not the best way to go, but that's why I always try and be realistic with everyone here on this channel, that sometimes you're gonna have to make some sacrifices, whether that's gonna be time or money or something else, if you really, really wanna make this happen. And if you're in a really like desperate place where you're like, girl, at this point, I'm willing to eat beans and rice for a couple months. Now, phase 3 of your 90 days is gonna be interviewing. So while you're working on those design projects from phase 1 and sending out applications from phase 2, you're going to start doing a lot of prep work for interviewing. The thing that would suck the most is that you're like,
oh, I'm not getting any traction, no one's reaching out to me, and then
boom, you open your eyes next morning and you have an email, you have an interview in 2 days, and you're like, oh my God, I know nothing about this company. I don't even know how to answer questions. This happened to me, and I was so stressed out because I was also juggling my other job and other time commitments and things like that, and I was so stressed out. I just don't want you to feel that way. So I'm gonna tell you exactly what to do. You're gonna create a study guide right now today, like literally get on the computer and do this, open up Google Sheets, and you're gonna write down every question that you anticipate coming from a UX design interview. Now, I know this is hard if you've never been in an interview before. You're probably like, okay, like I'm just gonna make this up. No, this is how you know I got you. I have an interview guide. I'm gonna link it in my description below, and it's basically every single question that I have ever been asked in any of my interviews as a UX designer. And I'm talking like 20 plus companies that I've interviewed with. I've taken every single question that anyone's ever asked me between product managers, engineers, designers themselves, and I've put them on a document. So you're gonna use that as a starting point and fill out those questions with your answers. And the guide is pretty lo-fi. It's a document with all these questions, but honestly, like if you're in a pinch and you just need a starting point, I feel like the guide is a really helpful way to just kind of get your juices flowing. That way, when it's time, you're gonna feel so much more confident going into your interview, and you're not gonna have to stress, because honestly, reducing stress is probably the most important thing before going into an interview, and you've already done the legwork. So basically, I did everything, like everything I just went over with you here. And because of that, I was able to get a UX design job 2 months out of my boot camp. Every time I have to find a new job, I die a little inside. So I get it. I get it. But remember who you are. One of my favorite quotes is, "You didn't come this far just to come this far." So be bold, be audacious, take this new year as a sign to make a change, do something different than what you've already been doing. I also went through more rounds of interviews during a recession, and so I learned a ton during my time in this economy. Yes, I did. And so if you're interested in seeing that video, check this one out next.